I sprinted down the field, sun shining in my face, cleats digging into the turf, thighs and calves burning. I was 30 yards away from that faded, thin white line that could change my life if I crossed it. I stared at that line for so long I thought my eyes would burn out, and still it came closer. Closer. So close. Then there was pain, nothing but pain, shooting pain glancing through my head and my chest, lancing all through my body down to my ankles. Pounds and pounds of weight shoved me into the ground. I saw flashes of green and white, and then nothing. A black void. A drifting bliss overtook my body, and I fell out of consciousness. I gasped as I shot up, nearly cracking my coach in the head. He leaned back, eyes wide. "You all right there, Caleb?" he asked tentatively. I looked around, the noise finally starting to leach into my brain. Fans in the bleachers, the booing and cheering interspersed. I winced. We lost. Coach's eyes tightened at the corners, the hand permanently glued to a football, now clamped in a vise around the malleable rubber. "We lost." He nodded slightly. "Not your fault, son. Those guys bulldozed you." I bobbed my head, not really listening. I had been so close to stopping the trauma that riddled me every night, brought on by the constant bullying by my peers, my teammates, that broke me down. I swallowed and looked down, focusing on the grass between my legs, focusing on the annoying pain of the throbbing in my head. It was slowly diminishing. I guess that was good for my health, but I needed that distraction to get me through this. Coach sighed and pushed off the ground, holding out a calloused hand for me to take. I grasped it gratefully, letting him pull me up so I was above his eye level. He gently led me towards the rest of the team, the cheery white and green colors of our uniforms a stark contrast to the defeated, sweat-stained faces of the boys wearing them. We followed the coach dejectedly into our locker room, walking by rows of weathered, faded blue lockers and rickety wood benches, making our way to the group of chairs that surrounded a whiteboard still marked from halftime. We started to sit down, but Coach walked right past it, waving us off with a flick of his hand and a nod to make sure we knew we weren't in the wrong. I looked at my surroundings, expecting the usual onslaught of jibes and abuse to come my way, reinforced by my losing that last touchdown, the one that would have helped us at least tie the game, given us a chance. No one even looked my way. In fact, they're looking the other way, not so subtly shooting dirty glares at two boys in the corner of the room. Lucas and Josh, both in my year as sophomores, our first year on the team. We had gained respect quickly, but when the team found out about my passions outside of football, namely dance, they fled. Now those boys had lost the coveted respect of the upperclassmen as well. My mind went back to a few hours before. I leaned against a locker, sitting on a bench in the boys' locker room, the smell of sweat and deodorant permeating the air. Josh and Lucas sat on an identical bench towards the center of the room. Aside from a few conversations throughout the room, there wasn't really a lot of talking. I sat there quietly, letting the conversations leak into my brain, barely registering what was said. Then I heard Josh. "I'm gay." The room went silent. Josh and Lucas didn't notice. Lucas looked uncomfortable, but he smiled. "Thanks for telling me, man." I looked closer. His eyes were tight and his smile was too wide, too fake. Josh nodded. "Thanks for listening." Ethan walked up behind them, and the smile starting to form on Josh's face fell away as he and Lucas faced the massive quarterback. "Oh, sorry, was I interrupting something?" Ethan sneered as he glared at Josh. Lucas mumbled something quietly as he stared at the floor, intimidated. Ethan's gaze flicked to Lucas for a moment, but quickly refocused on Josh. "So you're a fag bag, huh?" "Yeah, we heard what you said." Josh's trembling hand brushed against Lucas's hip as he backed away slightly. Lucas flinched. Ethan's pointed stare shot straight to the movement. "Sorry," he chuckled. "I'll leave you two lovebirds alone." "No, I'm not," Lucas started to object. "Shut it, kid," Ethan interrupted. "Looks like romance to me." He walked away, his group of friends trailing him. No one moved. Lucas turned and looked at us. We all stared quietly back at him. You could hear a pin drop. He shook his head slightly. I thought it might be from disappointment. "Dude, I'm so sorry, that freaking Ethan kid." Lucas broke off as he turned to look at Josh, but he wasn't there. "Josh?" he asked, his voice quivering. "Josh!" His voice bounced off the walls. Still, no one moved. I swung my gym bag over my shoulder as I stood up, most of the team gone by now, including Josh. Threading my way through the lingering players, I started towards the door in sight, eager to be in my car and on the way to dance. I had hip-hop today with my favorite teacher, Grant. I always looked forward to his classes. They had enough emotion and move to make me forget about school and bullying and all the people constantly judging me for liking a girl sport. Before I made it to the door, a hand grabbed my shirt and pulled. "You a fag bag too, Caleb?" Ethan sneered in my ear. I gulped. "I know a lot of male dancers are gay, but honest to God, I'm not. I'm definitely attracted to girls, including those in my school. Not they'd give me the time of day." "No." "Liar." "I swear I'm not. Please let me go, Ethan. Coach is in the other room." I played the coach card, hoping it would be enough for his grip to loosen. I was right. I slipped out of his grip, edging towards the door uneasily. "Why are you so homophobic?" I asked hesitantly, keeping a hand up on the door handle in case I needed to make a hasty escape. A hard look formed in his eyes. Let's just say Father Dearest wasn't the happiest person on earth when his oldest son ran off to Vegas to get hitched with his college roommate. I was 7. 7. That kind of reaction tends to make an impression on a boy who isn't even out of elementary school. Gay people. That isn't right, dude. And anyone thinks it is a fag, too. Now go. I stared in shock. Ethan had just told me so many things that my brain was struggling to keep up. 1. He was a homophobe because his brother, the famed Rex Hudson, is gay. Which really ties into number 2, Rex is gay. The boy who is a legend at Desert Vista High School. The one who is honored and respected by every single boy to ever set foot in the locker rooms. The one who is lusted after by girls ranging from freshman to senior to college. He's gay. I ducked. Ethan's hand flew over my head, and he pulled back just in time to avoid his knuckles crashing into the door. I threw open the door, but his hand stopped me. I didn't think he was going to grab me, as he looked towards Coach's office, but I could tell he definitely wanted to. As I thought, he let me go, but pinned me with a hard look in his eyes. "I'll be back, Shrimp. Don't think I won't get you." I fled. My car screeched as I pulled out of the parking lot and raced off to dance. I was early, but I wanted to get there. I shoved the smooth leather-coated handle forward to put the car into park, and, letting out a sigh of relief, surveyed the scene outside through my windshield. A stone pathway under a chipped maroon overhang separated the parking lot and the studios. From my car, I could see 2 different classes. In the class to my right, teenage girls swirled, leaped, and kicked their legs up in time to the music. In the class to my left, a class of girls that I would estimate to be in kindergarten were clumsily attempting to follow their teacher in class. A young girl of about 15 helped the teacher, and with a kind smile playing on her lips, she walked around the room, correcting the young dancers slightly while praising their sparkly tutus and bright smiles. I sat there and watched her for a minute. Being only a year younger than me, she had been dancing for almost the same number of years I had. I knew her name. Anastasia. Goes by Sia for short. She's my best friend at the studio. Scratch that. Probably my best friend anywhere since everyone at school hates me. She glanced out the window and saw me creeping in my car. She rolled her eyes and winked, gesturing for me to come over and say hi to the little girl she was currently helping. I let out a sigh. Sia had a way of affecting me that no one else did, probably since she was the only one I had ever let in. Holding up a finger to signal her to wait, I twisted my keys out of the ignition. Stalling, I leaned over the divider and dragged my dance bag into my lap. Pulling apart the 2 sides, I checked that all my things were there. Rubbing my fingers over the soft leather of my jazz shoes, dragging a nail across the shining silver of the plates secured to the toes and heels of my tap shoes, fingering the elastic straps holding together the canvas of my belly shoes. My high-top sneakers and sweatpants were already on, ready for the hip-hop class that I took with Anastasia in a few minutes. Slinging my bag over my shoulder, I shoved my keys in my bag and stepped out of the truck. It groaned and bounced as it released my weight, the slam of the door echoing across the stone hallways. Most people ignored it, but a couple watching Sia's class whipped their heads around in unison, snarls on their faces. They looked me up and down, and the man turned his head away, clearly already past it. The woman kept looking at me. Her eyes cut a path down my body, the contempt in her eyes unmasked. I shoved a hand through my messy dark hair, the strands falling in front of my eyes. I knew what she was thinking. I saw it in the boys at school. I just didn't think I would ever be exposed to it here, the one place that was free of judgment for me. She glared at me and turned back around. I cleared my throat and tried to push her out of my mind. Walking up to the glass, I placed myself a good distance away from them as I watched Sia finish up. The teacher sat in the corner checking the music for the recital coming up in a couple days. We had been having frequent dress rehearsals, forcing me to skip at least 2 football practices to stay for the whole time. Walking past the couple as I went to meet Sia for our next class, I averted my eyes. I could feel her stare boring into me. The wife. I shut my eyes tightly for a moment. Get out of my head. I turned the corner and almost collided with Sia. She looked at me strangely. She knew something was wrong. "Let's go," I muttered. The stone pathway echoed as our feet slapped against the ground, jogging to get to our class. Walking through the metal frame of the door, we waved to Grant, our teacher. The blaring music drowned out any voices, a silent reminder to the dancers that this time was for stretching, not talking. He looked at me, scrutinizing my face from across the room. He knew me well. I could see it in his face, the telltale signs that he recognized when I came in with a load of emotions weighing me down from a bad day at school. That is, a worse day than usual. Those signs usually disappeared the minute the music turned on. Today, however, they stayed, no matter how hard I tried to pull a blank mask over them. He waved us over. Sia and I walked over to him, but when we got there, he was only looking at me. "Sia, why don't you go stretch? I need to talk to Caleb for a second." Glancing away from me for a second, he caught the worried expression flitting across her features. "He's not in trouble, I promise," he reassured her. Nodding, she delicately set her bag down against the wall, tightened her laces, and went to stretch with another friend. I watched her go before turning back to Grant, uneasy with the amount of information I knew my face had already given away. He leaned against the mirror behind him, the stereo next to his hip blasting music through the overhead speakers. I kept a steady beat in my head in parallel with the music, a practice that usually relaxed me. Today it didn't. "Caleb?" I looked up. Grant was watching me, his eyebrows furrowed. I shook my head in the smallest of motions. "Not here. Not now. Please." He got the message. "Come talk to me after class. You have a break, don't you?" "Yeah." "Okay," he trailed off, looking at me uncertainly. I smiled half-heartedly and set my bag down next to Sia's. I hurried to stretch for a couple of minutes before Grant called us all together to give us a scheduled hour. It was simple. Recital was in a couple days. We would rehearse the dance for the entire hour, cleaning anything that wasn't already fixed. "All right, go." The music pumped through the speakers, consuming me. I listened to the song so much, practicing it in my head so much, that I knew it by heart. Every twist, every beat, every drop, every swell, I had it memorized. This was my element. The next hour went by in a blur. Starting places, dance, laugh with Sia, run back to starting places, repeat. I froze in my ending position, knee cocked as I crossed my arms with my head hung. Grant clicked a button on his laptop and clapped his hands twice. "Great job today, everyone. You guys are definitely ready for the recital." Everyone chorused their thank yous and walked off to grab their bags, talking in a steady stream with their classmates. Sia and I did the same, getting our things and making towards the door until I remembered that I had to talk to Grant. "Sorry, Sia. Grant wanted to talk to me for a second." I caught the furrow in her brow as she slowly nodded. "Okay, see you in a few minutes? We can go get Froyo with Rachel." I nodded gratefully, and she waved goodbye as she turned, jogging to catch up with Rachel, their heads bent together. Taking a deep breath, I turned back to Grant. He was packing up his laptop at the stereo. "So what happened today, Caleb? What made today the day you couldn't focus? Because I know you, and I know that you wouldn't be this distracted during the week of the recital." "There is a woman when I got here today. She was watching her daughter dance. Then she saw me. And she was thinking the things that Ethan and those guys say. I could tell." I hung my head, fiddling with the hem of my shirt. "Dance was my safe place. Now I feel like it's tainted," I whispered. Dragging a hand through my hair, I held on tightly, the pain helping me focus. "Caleb." I looked up. Grant was looking back at me, a kind warmth in his eyes. "You're not alone, Caleb. Every male dancer has been where you are at least once, and if they haven't, they're not in it for the long haul. If they care about dance, they embrace the judgment and use it to fuel their passion and creativity. If they don't, they pretend to brush the comments off, but go to dance affected and perform worse. That woman out there knows nothing about you, who you are, what you do, or what you go through. And she never will. She means nothing to you except confirmation of the fact that even in this studio, there are people that are going to judge you. You can't control them. The only thing you can control is your reaction. And the only reaction you should have is one that refuses to let you sink to that level." I was astounded. All I could do was nod along. I had never thought about it in that way. I had always blamed myself, but he was telling me to do the exact opposite. "Thank you," I whispered. "It gets better, Caleb. I promise." I smiled. "Thanks, Grant." He grinned back. "No problem. See you tomorrow." He left the class, yelling over his shoulder at me to close the door when I left. I stayed in the same place, leaning against the stereo, staring at myself in the mirror. My mind began to wander as I stood there, soaking up the moment of silence. Appearances went a long way, and honestly, I should work harder on mine. My dark brown hair fell on my eyes, but at least the sides were cleanly trimmed. My gray sweatpants were worn but fit well enough. They certainly weren't loose enough to fall off my hips like some of the jeans and sweats that guys at school wore. I never understood why they would want to show their boxers. I was self-conscious enough without that adding to my discomfort. My tight-fitting black t-shirt clung to my sweaty frame, the graphic white lettering spelling out the words, "You play football? That's cute," over a dancer silhouette. I let out a sigh. It worked for me, but I wouldn't be impressing anyone anytime soon. Not that I cared, of course. It was just like the rest of my life. It was me. It was what I loved. I walked over to grab my bag, and as I walked out of the classroom under the darkening sky, I replayed the conversation that I had had with Grant a few minutes ago. It changed things. Tomorrow would be a better day. I would make it one. My arm ached as the blunt edges of the locker ground into my bicep. Wincing in pain, I muttered, "Please, Ethan, stop." "Why should I, Caleb? No coach to save you now, is there? Just you and me." He was cut off by the ringing of a cell phone. His leg vibrated against me, and he growled in frustration. Loosening the pressure on my arm by removing one of his hands, he pulled his phone out of his pocket and pressed a button. "What?" he asked as he brought it to his ear. "Yeah, I'm at school." "No, there's no practice. I just wanted to come a little bit early." I groaned. His grip was still tight enough to hurt me. "No, no one's here." He shot me a glare. "Shut up." My phone alarm sounded in my pocket. 7:30 a.m. For once, I was relieved that my obsessive need to be on time came in handy. He jerked away from me. "No, I'm not with anyone, Dad. Some guy just walked by and his phone rang." He turned away. I took my chance. Twisting away from the locker, I grabbed my backpack and jogged through the halls to my history classroom. I hadn't planned on going to Mr. Kemp's class for the optional office hours he held on Friday mornings, but I didn't see another choice. Ethan was ruining my life, and I wasn't going to be sitting out there like easy prey for another half hour. And to think that I thought today was going to be different. Nothing ever changes. Nothing ever changes. I sat slumped in my chair, listening to the droning, monotone voice of my teacher as she paced in front of the class. I preoccupied myself by taking stock of everything in the classroom. I glanced at the clock, hung high on a wall out of reach of any student. Last year, the senior prank was to switch all the clocks on campus to run 2 hours and 13 minutes ahead. They even got the one in the principal's office. Guess they didn't want that happening again. I watched the bell above the clock. 1 minute left of school. 1 minute until this week from hell was over, and I could go to recital tonight, the one part of this week I was looking forward to. The bell rang. Shoving my binder in my backpack, I slung it over my shoulder as I stood up. Following the swarm of students making their way to the door, I patiently waited as the groups of friends in front of me pushed their way out into the hallway. Walking the crowded, narrow aisle, I slowly made my way to my locker. Twirl the dial, pop the lock, push the lever, pull the door open. Mechanical movements, all designed to not draw any attention to myself after a day of consistent bullying. Ethan was more aggressive today than usual. That meant his sidekicks were too. Break was bearable, it was just verbal. Lunch was hell. I ended up in the bathroom blotting a nosebleed. I pulled the dance bag out of my locker and twisted the top in my hand to make sure nothing fell out. I locked my locker and breathed a sigh. School was over. Turning, I walked towards the double doors that marked my freedom. My mind clouded with the euphoria of a near escape. I jerked in surprise, almost falling over as I walked straight into someone. Their hand shot out and grabbed my arm. Righting myself, I pulled myself out of their grasp. They had clenched right where Ethan had shoved me into the metal lock this morning. Flinching, I mumbled an apology and tried to scoot around them. They tapped me on the shoulder. "Caleb?" I looked back. It was Josh. I hadn't seen him in a while. He looked different, more comfortable, like he was becoming himself. I wondered if that's what happened when you embraced who you were, like Grant said. I guess I wouldn't ever find out. Not if Ethan was still around. "Hey, Josh, how's it going?" He shrugged. "Could be better. You?" I held up my dance bag, comfortable with the knowledge that Josh had never once judged me for dancing. "After recital. See you later?" "Yeah," he smiled and prompted a genuine grin out of me. "Caleb, you guys are on." Grant gently pushed me into the wings. The dark stage in front of me loomed. I took a deep breath. One foot in front of the other, I walked out, flanked by my classmates. Starting position. Lights. Music. Go. For 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I danced my heart out, not even having to force the smile that stretches across my face. I know, when I see Grant smiling, that I am hitting everything. Every turn, leap, kick, pause. This is me. I perform 5 more times, one song for each class. Each time I'm smiling brightly. Each time I mark everything perfectly. Each time I'm complete. After the I change into comfortable clothes and walk out with Sia by my side. We chat about the show, what went well, what costumes we liked. I'm laughing when I see it. Those colors, that jacket. I have the same one in my locker room at school. Someone from the football team. They're here. Why? To mock me, make fun of me, ruin another part of my life? Sia notices my change in demeanor. She looks around, following my stare. It's okay, Caleb. It's okay. They're just here to support you. Nothing is going to happen, I promise. I won't let anything happen. I nodded. We walked towards them. As I got closer, I noticed more details. Brown hair, closely cropped, thin black cord around his neck, beat-up Converse. Josh. He turned around and broke into a bright grin. Caleb, dude, you're incredible. I've never seen someone dance like that. Geez, how often do you practice? I couldn't do anything but stare. Sia answered for me. Smiling warmly, she said, Hi, I'm Sia, Caleb's friend from dance. He dances 6 hours a week. Hey, Sia. 6 hours? Man, no wonder you always leave practice in the rush. I still just stood there. Caleb, is it okay that I came? I know you've had it rough with Ethan, and I just wanted to come support you. There was a silence that was filled only by the rushing and celebrating of the people surrounding us in this vast auditorium. I smiled. Yeah, it's definitely okay. Thanks for coming, Josh. I appreciate it. He laughed. You had me there for a second, see? You guys want to go grab a bite to eat? On me. That looked exhausting. Sia and Josh struck up a conversation right away, and, with me trailing behind, walked towards the doors leading out to the sidewalk. They both turned back and saw me walking behind them. Rolling her eyes, Sia grabbed me and pulled me into their cluster, still jabbering on about whatever it is a dancer and a football player have in common. It's not much, but I made it work. Even if Ethan doesn't accept me, there are people who do. I had support from my dance family, and now I have it from football too. The crisp air enveloped us as we walked down the cracked sidewalk. The dancer, the football player, and the boy who chose to live in both worlds.